Merkt man es? Ja, ein bisschen, es druckt mir ein bisschen. Aber es ist ein bisschen viel los. Kann ich beginnen? Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident.
President Zelensky, colleagues from the National and Council of States, the two chambers of Swiss parliaments, we're in dismay about the human suffering which the Russian aggression has inflicted upon Ukraine. We're convinced that a unilateral war of aggression can never be a means of politics. These were the words with which the declaration of our two chambers started on 28th February and 1st of March 2022, and that declaration was then adopted. And with these words, we roundly condemned the aggression of Russia against Ukraine, a breach of international law. And here we are 15 months later. Nothing has changed about this conviction. We must not and we will not get used to the atrocities inflicted by the Russian army day by day upon Ukraine. For more than a year, war is being waged against Ukraine and its people. Civil infrastructure is being destroyed in a targeted fashion. Houses are being bombarded. Fields are being burned. For more than a year, women and men have been abused and killed, and thousands of children have been forcefully abducted. Let me say it aloud and clear. Attacks of the civil society and civil infrastructure are not acceptable and represent a clear breach of international humanitarian law. The destruction of the Novakachovka Dam is the latest example for this. With today's address of President Zelensky, we would like to send out a sign of our solidarity to the Ukrainian people. Mr. President, we admire the bravery and the courage with which Ukrainians have resisted the Russian aggressor. The values for which they risk their lives are our values. The security and independence of Ukraine are of immediate importance for Switzerland's security and independence. Colleagues, Switzerland is a neutral country. However, neutrality does not mean that we close our eyes and ignore injustice. We must not shy away to call a spade and to name the aggressor and the victim. And that is why we have adopted EU sanctions. That is why we have taken in refugees from Ukraine, and that is why We provide humanitarian assistance wherever we can. From a Swiss perspective, one thing is self-evident. Ukraine has an inalienable right to self-defense. I hope, however, that the country will be able to live in peace shortly. I now have the honor to give you, President Zelensky, as Supreme Representative of the Ukrainian people, the floor.
Дякую.
Hören Sie uns.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Candinas, for the kind words about Ukraine and our right to self-defense. Now that we have to defend our lives against Russian aggression and that we have to live with the consequences of this horrible aggression, we try to overcome it. And last but not least, the biggest ecocide in Europe. We need cohesion. We need those who share our values to stand with us. And those values are life, freedom, rule of law, and the respect of all nations, all communities, and all human beings. We need a maximum cohesion. And that is where solidarity is the strongest. And if that is the case, freedom, respect, and democracy will prevail. Let me talk with you today about cohesion, ladies and gentlemen. Members of the the Swiss Chambers, ladies and gentlemen in Switzerland, what is the soul? What are the basic values that we share? It is peace. Ukraine has never been the source of aggression, and even now, it might sound paradox, but it's certainly true. Even today, Ukrainian soil is a territory of peace because the source of this aggression is outside of our borders. Just imagine every single night Ukrainians do not just go to bed peacefully, but they check the news whether there could be an attack by Russian Air Force over the Caspian Sea, whether they're gathering there to drop bombs on us. 1,500 kilometers from where we are, this war is paired up in the sky, and whenever it is clear that there will be a rocket launch, wherever there will be missiles, then Ukrainians make sure that their children sleep in the corridors. The children sleep where there are no windows, where it is safer in the house, or they go to shelters. Just imagine a life like this. Imagine what it feels like living in these cities that are close to Russia. Our border regions, they're suffering consistent attacks out of Russia almost every night, almost every day. Cities, villages, churches, schools, supermarkets, companies are the victims of Russian attacks, artillery or mortar attacks, or missiles are sent over from Russia to our soil. That brings death. It is a lethal threat for us. Hundreds of Ukrainian families have lost their loved ones because of the attack of Iranian drones. Almost every night, dozens of such drones are sent out to our cities. Thankfully, and thanks to the support of our partners, for which we are immensely grateful, we are now in a position to defend ourselves against most of these drones, and we can shot them down, but not all of them. And they annihilate human lives, they annihilate our infrastructure. And they are the source of death that comes out of Russia. In this gruesome war that is being waged on our soil, there is absolutely nothing that would mean that we in Ukraine, our people, are the source of this aggression. No, we're not the ones going out and conquering foreign land. We're not doing that. We are here, we stand up to defend our liberty, our independence, our values. And we want to defend peace for our children. Our peaceful country has been attacked by those who are now burning down our cities, are burning them to the ground. Everything they touch turns into ashes. The Zaporizhzhia power plant has been occupied by them. It is being used as a shield by them, rather cynically. And they use their positions to fire rockets, fire missiles on our cities. Russia blew up the Kakhovka Dam, which is a man-made catastrophe. It is a crime against humanity and nature. If we look at this objectively, we will see that had Russia not brought this war into our soil, there would be no war. The source of death, the source of destruction is outside of our borders. We want to defend ourselves, and if you protect us, you protect the world against war. Even those nations show solidarity towards us with which before the 24th of February 22 we did not have any in-depth relations. Even such nations have shown support. That was the day when Russia started its aggression against our country. The aggression turned into an all-out war, breach of international law. And I'd like to thank you for any kind of support, reducing Russian aggression, reducing Russian clout. We would like to help everyone with their sanctions. We thank those who have helped to freeze Russian capital and undermine those who turn Russia into a terrorist state. Thank you for your support. Weapons delivered to Ukraine, sanctions against Russia that make sure that Russia will not get used to the pressure that there is out there. It must increase, and there must be more justice. There must be a tribunal where these acts of Russian aggressions will be brought to justice. I would like to thank you, Switzerland, for not just ignoring the suffering of our people. You, Switzerland, have adopted the European sanctions against Russia, and it is very important to show solidarity because these sanctions will help us to end aggression, and we have to strengthen the sanctions. I know there is a discussion in Switzerland about the re-exportation of war material to protect and defend Ukraine. That would be vital. And I'd like to say one thing. Please remember one fact. We need weapons so we can restore peace in Ukraine and Ukrainian soil. We want peace. That's what we want, and that's what our people want. And it's something that is rooted in international law. It was mentioned at the beginning. A rule-based world order should bring freedom for every nation. Not Ukraine is the source of aggression. We're not a territory of war. We're not a conflict zone. We are a country that has always upheld the importance of peace. And you know full well that we can only counter this aggression together. Last year, in autumn, at the G19 summit, I presented the Ukrainian peace formula. Several states and several leaders already participate in this formula, and the way the formula is worded, anyone can just pick a component of it and make sure that peace and security be restored. There are partners who picked food safety, food security, for example. Other partners would like to help us bring our abducted children back. They were abducted by the Russian occupiers, taken to Russia, and they're hidden away from their families. We're talking about thousands of Ukrainian children who have been abducted are in Russia. We want to bring them back home, and we have partners helping us with the restoration of justice. Others can help us clearing minds. In March, when we talked to the federal president, Mr. Berset, I introduced my peace formula to him, and I talked about our approach. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite you to hold a global peace summit. You can take a leading role there, and you can bring in your national expertise there. You can bring in your know-how and organize such a peace summit. And another thing, Switzerland has experienced, the world has experienced several wars. The world has experienced several wars, and the more sophisticated a war is to destroy human life, the deeper our understanding has become that the protection against aggression and prevention of aggression requires solidarity and collective and unified action. We're now looking at a war that is driven by technology. Human beings, states, are being terrorized by that, and we can only counter this together with solidarity. Thank you, Switzerland. Thank you for your attention. Long live Ukraine.
Sehr geehrter
President Zelensky, we are deeply touched and we're deeply concerned by your words. As a small nation in the heart of Europe, it is of utmost importance for a country that it is not the law of might that prevails and that decides the destiny of human beings and countries. Ukraine is at the front line and is fighting for the respect of international law, which is in our interest as well. Only a rule-based international order can create a stable environment for relationships between states, and only such an order can secure the peaceful coexistence of nations. Ladies and gentlemen, a neutral state also has the right and maybe even the duty to stand up and advocate for its basic values such as democracy, rule of law and human rights. And Switzerland is a country that defends international human rights. Let there be no doubt, Switzerland supports Ukraine, its independence, its sovereignty within its internationally recognized borders. Mr. President, about a year ago, we initiated a process in Lugano, Switzerland, to lay the foundation for the reconstruction of the country. The Ukraine Recovery Conference and the Lugano principles adopted there have ever since been the political compass for future efforts of reconstruction, which is a colossal task to which Switzerland would like to make an adequate contribution. We certainly welcome that this process will be continued at the follow-up conference in London next week. President Zelensky, it only remains for me to thank you for your address today. I would like to wish you and the people in Ukraine courage, strength, and most importantly, just and lasting peace.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident Zelensky, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus dem National- und Ständerat, meine Damen und Herren, ich danke Ihnen für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit.
President Zelensky, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Have a great afternoon.